Um, okay. What's Gimple? Cool.
Yeah.
He's muted. Wait, he's muted. Wait, no, he's muted on WebEx. That's cool.
No, I'm muting. Tell him we can't see his notes though. Yeah. Only everybody else can in the room. Well, I'm trying to get the camera up. This one's not working. So just put on the screen.
What should I?
Yeah, IAC.
Didn't I just send you an email?
Yeah.
This just for him, like he's speaking.
Hold on, bro. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh my god, bro.
Here.
Hold on. Working on it. Working on it. Give me a second. Hold on.
Of enterprises are really seeing, 25% of enterprises are seeing value, but 75% of them are stuck in what's known as the AI gap. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about that today. All right, so I'm going to start out with sharing 3 data points that will tell you a lot about where AI is today, right? So the first one is about the incumbent, right? It's JP Morgan. So I don't know if you guys have been reading the news lately, but JP Morgan spends about $2 billion annually on their AI efforts. And just recently they said that they have already achieved $2 billion in savings. And my numbers are actually a little old. It's even better than this. Just I think in the past week they said that they have spent actually less than that and have recouped more than that. So the numbers are looking even better. And this isn't a pilot. This is their operating model now, right? Let's talk about the next one, Mercer. Right? Mercer is an insurgent, right? Started by 3 21-year-olds. They have about 30 employees. And just by the end of last year, they had already started making 50 million in annual recurring revenue. All right. So what are leaders actually doing here? What separates them? Leaders are operating shared platforms and services that are reusable. They're using ML ops for machine learning lifecycle management, while the laggards are spreading investment across disconnected pilots that have no scale-up mechanisms in place. So let's double down, or let's double click into each one of these and get to know them better. So the first one is AI governance. The most companies treat governance as the department of no. Compliance, legal reviews, risk committees, months of delays. That's what comes to mind when people think of compliance. But what the leaders have done is they've flipped the script over here. They've weaponized governance as speed. They're getting ISO 42001 certified, which is like the first AI management standard in the world. And when CEOs lead the AI agenda, we know that companies perform 58% better. And this isn't their side project anymore. It is a competitive advantage. Here's what it looks like in practice. Automated validation frameworks, continuous drift monitoring, AI systems that govern other AI systems, compliance at machine speed, and built-in alignment with EU regulations and NIST frameworks. So the gap is real. 75% of financial service executives say that regulatory compliance is their biggest barrier. Yet, the companies that solve for this complexity are the ones that are moving the fastest. 6 weeks to deploy models versus 6 months. Enabler 2 is data infrastructure. We all know that machine learning models rely on tremendous amounts of data for their learning and inference. You can't really create and run machine learning models on infrastructure of yesterday. It's like it's over a dial-up internet. I mean, it will work. What does the modern data stack look like? How is it different? Cloud-native lake houses, feature stores that make machine learning 60% faster because of reusability of features, vector databases and graph databases that make semantic search and applications, Gen AI applications, a lot faster. Trading systems that fuse market data, news, and sentiment in real time. So all of these are really what the modern data infrastructure looks like. And if you think about the gap here, right, 58% of financial services executives admit that IT systems disrupt businesses on a weekly basis. And yet, studies show that 30 to 70% of cost reduction when their platforms are actually optimized. Right? So what we're saying here is that the infrastructure problem is solvable and profitable. Right? The third one is the operating model. It needs to be redesigned for AI. The biggest mistake that people are making today is that they're bolting AI onto existing processes. You take a broken workflow, you bolt on AI, and you get a faster broken workflow. That's what happens, right? So what leaders are really doing in this space is that they are redesigning for human AI collaboration. A central AI center of excellence that provides platforms and services, standards, federated teams that will own the business outcomes. Clear decision-making rights at every step of the way. It tells everyone where AI makes decisions and where humans decide and how they collaborate, right? So trading desks, what's happening on trading desks is a great example, right? AI handles pattern matching, scenarios, modeling, risk assessment, all in milliseconds, while the humans come in to really make calls on the complex decisions, manage relationships, set the strategy, and actually execute the trades. What does that result in, right? Faster decision making, better risk management, opportunities captured that would have been missed. So the takeaway over here is that 70% of the AI challenges are actually people and process related. Only 10% are algorithm related. Yet, what we're seeing is that companies are spending 70% of their effort on the algorithms. They're obsessed with whether it is GPT-3.5, GPT-4, Gemini, or all the different models, right? When actually their efforts should be focused more on people and process. Enabler 4 is workforce transformation. So the surprise here is that only 10% of executives expect a headcount reduction from AI. There'll definitely be displacement, but the story is not going to be about replacement. It's going to be about reconfiguration. There will be things that were done today by humans that will get done by AI, but there will be humans that need to be retrained to do other more higher value added jobs, right? So if you take, for example, Standard Chartered, they put it really well. So their chief strategy officer said that don't think of people by job titles. Think of them as a collection of skills, right? They're literally rewiring around skills, right? And basically humans and AI collaborating together. So what does this look like? It means that we need to identify what tasks AI can augment and redesign those roles around human AI collaboration. We need to create internal mobility pathways as roles evolve. We need to start building role-based AI academies, not generic AI training, but specific AI training that's related to the roles. For example, you could be a trader, or you could be an underwriter, or you could be an analyst. And the numbers tell us the story here. The leaders in the space have 3 times more employees trained and upskilled in AI. 21% of the big spenders have trained over a quarter of their workforce already. Only 6% of the companies overall have reached this threshold. So you know that the gap is massive. You can't transform what you can't understand, right? So a huge effort has to be put into retraining, reskilling, and retaining enterprise knowledge, right? And the final one is autonomous agents. I think everybody has been hearing a lot about agents, AI and agents. And in the most simple form, agents are just AI programs that have learned how to use tools. They work on the basis of memory, they can remember. They work on the basis of reasoning, they can break down problems. And they work on the basis of system access, which means that they can do things on your behalf. You have given them agencies to take actions, right? Now, what does this look like in finance? Some of this is already happening. Autonomous agents are helping rebalancing portfolios within risk parameters. They're enriching trading signals from unstructured data in milliseconds. And early deployments are showing 3 times productivity improvement over traditional automation. But here's the critical part. Agents are more complex than assistants. They require robust testing frameworks, strong sandboxes, clear permission boundaries, human escalation pathways, and comprehensive audit trails. So that's where there's a huge gap, right? While it's powerful, it needs to be handled with care. You can run really fast. You can drive a car really fast on the racetrack as long as you are on the track, not off the track. Okay, so the gap is this. 76% of executives admit that their AI cybersecurity needs improvement. And with agents, security isn't just about data, right? It's about autonomous actions it's taking on your behalf and on behalf of the business. If you get this wrong, you can do some serious damage here. All right. So we've just gone through what I call as the playbook, the 5 different enablers at work, right? We've talked about JP Morgan making $2 billion in savings, Mercer having a 50 million ARR within 2 years and 30 people. So there is a blueprint. It does exist. People are getting this right. But yet there's this paradox that 75% of the companies are still stuck. They have access to the same technology. They're spending tons of money. So what's wrong? Yep. So the numbers are telling us a contradictory story. AI investments are accelerating, up to 60% projected by 2027. 1 in 3 companies is planning to spend 25 million plus over the next year. Money's flowing, but the value isn't, right? Only 25% of the companies are seeing significant impact. 92% say that their AI efforts generate profits, but only 32% of those are achieving this at scale. So there's a lot of expensive pilots not turning into products, right? This is what we call the AI impact gap. It's not technology related, it's not capital related, it's an execution gap. And that's what we're going to talk about next. All right, so this is where it gets interesting, right? When we look at companies and where they are investing their AI dollars, most companies are trapped in what we call the productivity theater. They're putting more than half their investments into deploy, which is basically everyday productivity layers. Things like AI assistants for email, code completion, meeting summaries. Useful? Yeah. Transformative? No. Right? Meanwhile, what are leaders doing here in this space? Leaders are doing something very different, right? They flip the investment triangle, right? They put over 80% of their spend is going into reshape and invent, right? A leading company redesigns entire workflows around human AI collaboration, right? So let's make this concrete. A lagging company may deploy ChatGPT to help a loan officer write better emails. But a leading company redesigns the entire workflow around human AI collaboration, changing roles, workflows, decision rights, and risk controls. Now, that's the difference between 5% efficiency and a 30% transformation. Yep. And here's the paradox over here, right? Leading companies actually pursue fewer use cases than the laggards. On average, 3.5 versus 6. But they go much deeper. They commit the resources, they change the process, and they see it through material impact. And the results are clear. Leaders anticipate more than double the ROI than the laggards. Not because they have better technology, not because they spend more, but they're focused on the right layer of the stack. So let's talk about the measurement problem. Why can't companies prove AI value even though they're creating it? So this is quite a staggering statistic. 60% of companies fail to define financial KPIs for AI value creation. Imagine walking into your CFO's office and saying, "We spent 10 million on AI this year," and they ask, "What's the return?" And you respond, "Well, our data scientists are really happy, and our users say the chatbot is helpful." That conversation is not going to go well, right? All right. So now let's take a look at the companies that are actually tracking AI. You'll find that nearly a third aren't tracking anything yet, 32%. They're still in pilot mode. 28% only track operational metrics like model accuracy, number of user adoptions. I mean, it's great that the model is 95% accurate, but did it reduce cost? Did it generate revenue? Right? That's what CFOs want to know. That's what CEOs want to know. So let's contrast this. Lagging companies measure things like number of models deployed, number of employees satisfied with the AI tool. But leaders look at top line impact, revenue growth from AI, new market share captured, right? And they also look at bottom line impacts like the cost per transaction, efficiency gains, and the productivity per employee. They tie every AI initiative to a P&L line item. They can justify their AI spend. And the brutal truth of all of this is that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And if you can't prove business value, your AI budget will be the first thing to get cut when the CFO needs to find funding. Yeah. So the companies that are seeing value, they aren't smarter about AI. They're just smarter about measuring it. They know exactly what each AI investment return is, and they can prove it in dollars, not data points. So here's what we call the 10-20-70 gap, right? It's kind of like an iceberg. Every company can see the 10% that's above the water, right? And this is what we call the algorithms. They're all obsessed. Board meetings are obsessing with, are you using ChatGPT? Are you using Claude? Are you using Gemini? Yeah. But the reality of it is that 70% of AI features, of AI failures, are really related to people and process issues. Yeah. And only 20% is technology and data. And only 10% are algorithms. Yet, companies are spending and allocating resources backwards. Think about it. You have the world's best AI model, but if your people don't trust it, and your workforce won't accommodate it, and your culture resists it, it sits unused. 2/3 of companies admit that they're struggling with this exactly. Reimagining workflows, changing culture, and upskilling people. That's what they're struggling with. The leaders get this, right? They spend a majority of their effort on this stuff. It's the hard stuff. Reorganizing teams, redesigning processes, retraining people, realigning incentives. The algorithms are the easy part, actually, right? So if we take one thing away from this tonight, right, it would be stop obsessing about which AI model to use and start obsessing about how you will change your organization, how you will completely redefine workflows. All right, so that brings us to why is execution so hard, right? What are we missing here, right? So we do know the gaps here. There's a gap in domain expertise and AI capability. Consultants are great at strategy, but weak at building. Big tech comes in, they got great tech, but they don't have domain knowledge. Startups, they're fast and furious, but they don't have enterprise experience. and in-house has deep enterprise experience, but they most of the time lack that AI native experience, right? So nobody has both sides of the scale here. And then the next one is the workflow design. This is where people need to be spending 70% of their effort. And to do this, you need partners who understand your business and can operate inside it. The third one is velocity, right? How do you operate at a startup velocity inside an enterprise? Enterprises are moving slowly, but they need to move a lot faster. And for that, you need a hybrid model. Fast execution with guardrails. And the last one is the risk managed innovation, which is very significant in industries like finance, pharma, and healthcare. You can't move fast and break things, right? Innovation needs to have the right regulatory guardrails. And that's a specialized capability that very few partners have, right? So the companies succeeding in making this AI transformation, they're not doing this alone. They're finding partners who can help them out with deep domain knowledge. The combination is rare and valuable. So the execution playbook that you can follow when that leaders are looking at is basically pretty clear, and I think we've gone through it by now. We need to reimagine how things can be done with AI. Instead of asking how can we automate this, ask if we were designing this from scratch today, how would we do it with AI? What would that look like? So it's the difference between bolting on AI to actually designing it end to end with AI. The second is target and prioritization. Focus on fewer initiatives, but do them end to end, more deeply, right? Resist the temptation to spread your investments across many pilots. Number 3 is you want to put AI in the service of enterprise, right? Of your enterprise ambition. In the sense that you want to make sure that you define and track your metrics, both operational and financial. Every AI effort should be able to tie back to those metrics. That's when you know you have controlled, that you have a controlled environment that's taking you in the direction that you want, strategically aligned. The next one is to lead a cultural and organizational change. Analysis has shown that when CEOs are directly involved and participate and are responsible for the AI transformation, they see 58% more benefits. You can't delegate transformation just to the CTO alone. And the last one is always be preparing for what's next. You have to anticipate what's coming. You have to be able to not just look around the corner, but also look over the horizon a little bit. And that's where, AI agents come in, because today that's what's over the horizon, right? We need to be able to balance exploiting technology with exploring emerging capability. So these are just a few industry-specific patterns where it's being used in the financial services, manufacturing, and consumer retail. And the underlying technology is the same. The common success patterns here are shared platforms and services, reusable components, tracking explicit value, and making sure that you use regulatory and compliance in a way that actually speeds you up. It is an enabler of innovation as opposed to being a blocker. Some of the common pitfalls that people are facing, and are they're spending and distributing their budgets over fragmented pilots, right? Without having an ability to scale those up. They don't define their KPIs. They are under resourced on the data side, on the infrastructure side. They're still working on infrastructure that cannot support AI. And they're not including compliance, legal right up front. All right. So closing the gap, right? So let's come back to where we started from. JP Morgan, 2 billion savings, Mercer, 50 million, and 75% of companies still not seeing value. So the bottom line is the difference is in technology. Everybody has access to the same technology, the same models. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, they'll sell to anyone and everyone. The difference is in the capital. Companies are already spending tens of millions. Right? The difference is execution across these 5 enablers. Governance as an accelerator, data infrastructure built for intelligence, operating models that are redesigned for human AI collaboration, workforce reconfiguration and upskilling, and then agents as potentially the future. And critically, what recognizing the 10-20-70 principle and focusing your efforts on the 70% to unlock that value. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop there for a bit. These were just some questions that I thought I put out there. But if you have questions of your own, we can take a few minutes and kind of go down those questions. And open it up to everyone here. Yeah.
One point to something called DevOps, which is kind of like development and operation pairing together as a subset within an organization to speed of implementation.
Yeah.
Is that the same kind of structure you're thinking about in an AI collaboration or AI method to get domain knowledge and speed paired together?
So what I'm thinking is that you can't just go out and get consultants that only know the tech and bring them in, right? You need to get, it needs to be a very cross-functional team that is a combination of people that understand the tech and know how to implement it in a way that is scalable. So that once you have something working, it's not just working for this little use case and it can't scale up to the entire enterprise. But at the same time, you need people that understand and have domain knowledge of the problem that you're trying to solve so that they can reimagine it from the ground up. Technologists won't be able to do that, right? So it's a combination of that. That's what I'm thinking.
So my question is, yeah, hi. So like for AI, do you see a parallel with any other technology, or not really technology, but let's say like e-commerce or something along the lines that mirrors what's happening in AI in the business world that we've seen before?
Quite frankly, no. It is definitely another technological jump. It's almost a step. It's not an analog signal. It's a digital signal. It just jumps up, right? And it's reached a point where it is improving and scaling a lot faster, right? So it will have the same. If you look at it 3 years from now, it will have the same characteristics as, let's say, the internet boom, right?
Right.
But in a more compressed time frame, right? So that's why, while we're in the middle of it, it's hard to see it. But I think once you remove yourself from it, you'll see the same curve.
Okay, so then just to play on to that, when you're comparing like a legacy company like JP Morgan and the startup company, I know you can't see the future, but if you were to just project what, as an expert of what you know, do you think that we're going to, like the e-commerce or the internet, do you think that we're going to see some of these legacy companies go away and some of these new companies become like the Amazons that we don't even see yet?
I mean, that's always possible, right? I mean, you look at when the mobile market exploded with the iPhone. What happened to BlackBerry?
Who was the
I could never imagine not using my BlackBerry. I mean, it was like stuck to my waist here, right? But it's gone, right? So that risk always exists, right? And that's why even incumbents like JP Morgan are investing so much in reinventing themselves. If they don't disrupt themselves, they will get disrupted, right? And that's just the nature of things, right? But yeah, if you look at banking, you have companies that are coming up with digital assets, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. They're challenging the status quo of how people look at money and value, right? So that's also there. Yeah.
Were to give this talk to an audience of people in mid-sized or large-sized companies, they would know how to take it in and they would know how to handle these discussion questions with you. But that's not your audience here. So your audience are first, second, third, fourth year students, many in computer science, some in other majors. They're hearing this, but most of it, there's no mental Velcro to stick to. It actually doesn't make much sense, even if they can understand each sentence. All right? So, given what you believe from, seems like one mostly BCG study, mostly targeted to large companies.
Yeah.
When they say X% of companies are investing, it's obviously not X% of companies, it's X% of companies in that sample
size
of a certain type of company. But the main points come through loud and clear. All right. So step away from the presentation and talk to year 4, 3, 2, and 1 students and saying you are about to enter the workforce. You are about to do internships. You are about to make choices for senior design projects. Given the state of the world as I understand it, right? You're in the software business, and they're doing this several years of training to train in computing. What would you tell them? Here they are.
Great question. That's a great question. And I'm sure that's on everybody's mind, right? So I think the positive and the best part is that you are all already AI native. You are learning, graduating with AI in your pocket, right? It's not that you're going to have to go out and learn it. That's, I think, one of the biggest advantages you have. You're thinking in an AI native way. The second thing that I would say is that when you start working, or if you're, let's take a step back. Senior design projects and the things that you're working on. It's the most important thing right now as you enter the job market or think about going out in a few years is your ability for critical thinking. Okay? You may not use your coding skills 5 years from now, but you have to have developed very good critical thinking skills in order to understand, analyze a problem, and come up with a plan to solve it. Imagine you will have 3 AI agents or a team of AI agents that you will be managing doing work for you. What would you tell them? If you have to break down this problem and explain it to them in a way that so that they can solve it for you and do the work for you, that requires a combination of critical thinking and communication skills. You need to have that. Okay? And there's one other thing. Yeah. If you can be at work, you should be there 5 days a week in the office. Okay? You don't learn anything in the house, work from home, BS. Okay? You need mentorship. You're not going to get that in the house, right? You need to develop your relationship building skills. That only happens when you are in work. Okay? I cannot stress how important that is for you. Especially, Absolutely. Because the kind of conversations that you will have that are impromptu around the water cooler or having lunch with a colleague, not going to have over Zoom. It's just not going to happen. and this and the ability to be able to walk into a conference room or give a presentation and read the room. You're not going to be able to read the room if you're on Zoom. It just won't happen. There are vital skills that you will develop. So if these are a few takeaways that I would say. All right.
Hi. I guess this is kind of like a follow up to him, but if you were trying to get like a new grad position and you want to show that you know how to use AI, but you're not just like dependent on it, how would you try to show like future employers that like you are a good candidate, like your fundamentals, but you also know like the ever change, like how to practically use it?
How to practically use it.
Yeah, even in like development.
So what I would do is like one of the ways that you could do it is you could take an existing workflow or a business solution, right, and completely reimagine it, okay, on how you could do it differently and improve it by 15, 20, 30%, right? So it shows that you understood the problem and have invested time to build that domain knowledge. You're not just a technologist, right? Because 5 years from now, you could just tell the AI to write you a machine learning model and it'll do it. It'll just say, here's the data, here are the features. I want you to optimize on this and run 5 different variations of it and give me the most optimized model. It's happening today, right? So, but people are not going to pay you for that, but people will pay you for this person understood the problem, understands the domain, and was able to completely rethink how we can do it, right? You're not bolting on AI, like I said. You are completely redefining how something gets done, right?
So if you combine what he asked and combine what you just said, what you showed us, one way to triangulate is imagine you're in the middle of an interview and you're talking about your portfolio. For the second day, so of course we use AI tools, like it's a given. But let me show you how we applied it in an interesting way, where both technology considerations and process domain considerations guided what we did. Just a student, it's a smaller scale project, not all at JP Morgan. In that context, look how we reimagined.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did. And we show even a small example that goes beyond just the algorithm, but using it in context.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Well, like in terms of like.
No, I'm joking. I mean, I'm saying
I mean, like,
you guys are all at the precipice of this, right? You're going to be using this for interviews.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess as a follow up to that, what specific like technology or models or like stuff would you recommend that we learn to try to better market ourselves better when we're applying for jobs?
I'll add to that.
Okay.
What we want to see is, aside from their career, what should the student focus on to make them more employable?
Yeah.
Making them more, not just a degree, but what can they study
Yeah.
in addition to the basic business
Yeah.
to get their skills better?
Yeah. In terms of, so I'll give you 2 different answers, but they will combine it at the end, right? So in terms of models, right, they'll fall into certain categories, and this is generally true across different industry domains, right? There are the models that will help you optimize a certain process or computation, and then there are models that do cohorts to understand what's related to what. And then there are models that are the ones that are used for anomaly detections, right? So between those 3 different categories of models, you can actually apply them interchangeably to a lot of different industries, right? Anomalies in finance could be anomalies in manufacturing, in robotics, or even in IoT, right? Because there's just data coming on and you want to find the anomalous behavior. Right? So as long as you have the fun, if you understand it conceptually and have used it in some degree, you don't have to know every great new model that comes out that fits into that domain, right? Into that pattern, rather. Because there will always be people that are just fundamentally doing research to improve those models. You don't need to know all of that. At some point, that will get commercialized and will come into open source, and then you can use the next greatest model, right? What matters is that you understand what kind of a solution is required to solve a certain type of problem, right? Or you could break down that problem into different pieces and say, yes, this is a big problem because, I need to optimize this portfolio, but really I'm going to break it up into many different parts. And one part requires me to find cohorts because, part of this is this person has a certain risk profile. And I just want to make sure that I give him a universe that relates to his profile because he wants to retire in 5 years, right? And then the next one could be, all right, now I want to optimize it because not everything out here fits in the category of the risk that he's willing to take. Or maybe he just doesn't love the tobacco and firearms industry and he does not want to invest in that. So things like that. You take preferences into place. So there could be different algorithms that address different types of personalization, right? So now you've gone from having knowledge of different types of algorithms to actually taking a concrete business product, which is portfolio optimization, and now broken it up across many different verticals, and then combine all of that to come up with a solution that is more efficient, probably more accurate, and completely or highly AI driven to a point where bring the human in the loop and say, hey, do you like this? Do you not like this? But when you do that, right, that's more valuable than knowing the latest and the greatest all the time because you really don't need to know the latest and greatest all the time. At least not unless you're a research scientist.
One wonderful point that comes out of what you just said that wouldn't be obvious to there's the world of AI models. But even once you have the world of AI models, there's the world of business domain models. Go talk to your friends in marketing. Go talk to your friends doing supply chain and optimization. They have like a whole family of models they use. Now, it's almost assumed all of those things are going to make use of AI models. But have familiarity with the fact that AI models are not limited to Gen AI.
Correct.
And that models are not just limited to AI models. They're the domain models. And then even on top of that, when you build an application, models are only part of the IT stack that you need.
Yeah. It's the stack is very deep, right? And you have to figure out where in the stack you want to play, right? The lower you go, the more technical it gets and the more research oriented it gets because it's like saying, high level abstractions on top and, machine level, infrastructure level work at the bottom, right?
So I wrote down my question to ask it as clear as I can, but people once worried that calculators would make mathematicians obsolete, but they ended up becoming a powerful tool instead. So I wanted to know what your view on the idea that AI might take human jobs. Do you think it'll mostly augment people, or would it be to replace certain roles entirely? Like I guess how human computers were replaced by actual machines.
Yeah. I do think some roles will be replaced completely. You think about it, right? AI is new, but we talked about self-driving cars, right? Tesla's been trying to do it for, I don't know, 10 years now, right? That might be close. I don't know, maybe it'll happen in the next 5 years. So what's going to happen to the role of the taxi driver or the truck driver? Maybe in 15 years, it will get so good that, no one will want to drive a car or a truck, right? They'll want to do something else with their time. They'll find something else. There'll be other jobs. There might be other jobs that help to make sure that all these things work like clockwork and that they are using the most optimal paths, or that they are, I don't know, some new problems might come up that we haven't even envisioned as yet, right? So yes, jobs will go, but new jobs will come in its place. And that's what happened with every technology revolution. It's kind of like AI is just a lot bigger and faster. I think I kind of want to compare it to like the wave that comes after tsunami. You can either surf it or you can go under it, right? So I think we all want to surf it, right? So that's why you got to go with it, right? You got to go with it, adopt it, make it part of your utility belt, right?
Let me comment on this for my professional work. I'm gonna follow on. One of the key points, totally consistent with what he just explained, is it's not predetermined. Whether jobs are created or lost net in balance is not a function of the technology. People don't realize it's not predetermined. It's a choice of how companies, teams, groups, institutions choose to deploy it. And if the focus is on the automation of the work of the present and the past, of course, you'll have fewer. If the focus is on value creation, new services, new products, new discovery, you'll have more. There was a powerful study that came out within the last 2 years that showed if you took all of the job categories in employment in the year 1940, sort of marked them, and then looked at employment in the year 2020. So, there you go, 60, like 80 years later. 60% of the employment over those later years were in new jobs that the job title did not exist in 1940.
Correct.
So this is where young people like yourself have to get involved in innovation efforts. It doesn't necessarily mean small company, but doing new things in new ways to bring new sources of value. And that's what will move things. Another question here?
Hi. Instead of completely banning AI, like the use of AI in classrooms, do you think it's more going to be more using it as a tool in classrooms from like teachers? Do you think it's going to be more detrimental to students in the long term, or do you think it'll be more beneficial?
I don't think it should be banned. That's my personal opinion. I think it is a fabulous tool, and I think that all universities that are progressive are teaching students how to use it in a productive manner. Like when I went to university, I had so many kids in my class, 300 kids in my class, and we used to die to get the attention of the TA or the teacher to get some time to solve problems. And but when I think about what my kid is doing now, she has access to ChatGPT, and she can, anytime she has a problem, she can drop in a calculus problem and say, "Show me how to solve this," right? And then you can have a conversation, go ahead with it. It's not to do your homework, it is to be a sparring partner, right? To get you, and if you use it in that way, has tremendous value. So that's how I would do it, right?
What questions over here? But I know we talked earlier. But what we were talking about earlier is how like the parameters you give AI. So with or without those parameters, what do you think the limit of AI is?
I think we've created AI in our own image, so to speak. So its limit, and it's only limited by our limitations because it's a reflection of us, right? And I think that's why, and we know that we are flawed in our own. So so there's no perfection here, but the good thing is that we know our flaws, so we can try and make something that is a little bit more guarded and sentient than we are. Let's hope, right?
AI can kind of get rid of critical thinking. So I guess like my question would be like, do you think it's like they should highly regulate it for like K through 12, and then like after, like, because like college it can be very useful, but for like high school especially, like personally I'm so glad I did not have Chat GPT in high school just because like I feel like I can actually think without it, like because of the critical thinking I learned in high school. So do you think like other people should be experiencing that? Because I actually was picking up a pizza the other day, and the guy was in high school, and I was asking him like, "How bad is AI?" Because I was waiting for the pizza, and he literally said it's terrible. Like people are abusing it, and it's just terrible. And like, and he was just saying like he's like not even like thinking about schoolwork, and it's just like, I mean, I'm sure he told me that like in confidence. Probably didn't think I was gonna say it here,
Yeah.
but like I don't know, like
So look, it's an interesting problem, right? I mean, I don't think it should be banned. I think it should be supervised, and people should be taught the right way to use it. I mean, imagine if you weren't allowed to use calculators. You have to first learn how to do your arithmetic, and then you know how to use it, right? I mean, it just speeds you up, right? So I don't think it should ever be used in a way to replace critical thinking. But if people are going to abuse it, then yes, it's kind of, yeah.
I just want to add a point. And you know me, I'm a big kind of do your work. But people that do that, they think they're cheating the system. They're really cheating themselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like it's like I feel like it's big
But
majority of it.
you invest the time, you do the work. It's your work. You grow, you learn, you become a better.
Yeah,
So-
but like sorry.
So here's the thing, right? I think this is so new that everyone is trying to adapt and come up with a way, like, how do we make sure that students are able to use it but still are able to do critical thinking? So I think that the way you're taught and the way that you're evaluated is also going to change, right? uh, I think that take-home assignments will be less weighted than actually in-class assignments, right? If you're sitting around a table and 5 of you are given a problem to solve as a team, and you don't have access to AI, what are you going to do? Right? So I think the way people will be evaluated should change, right? And if you're going to take home something and you're going to do it with AI, sure, use AI. But if you know that you're going to be evaluated on your critical thinking, you're going to use it differently, right?
I just have a quick question. So back in like 10, 15 years ago, when computer science started to become like the big pop-up major that everyone was focusing on, do you think that's going to now change that focus to like an AI development major? And is that going to be like the focus of what computer science is now? And most of it would just be learning how to create your own AI model and things like that.
That's I don't know. The jury's not out on that one, but I do think that computer science major is still valuable in the sense that it teaches you how to come up with solutions and how to think. What language you use may not be relevant anymore because you can use English as your language, right? But if you don't know how to break down the problem and how to think about how to solve it, it's not going to help you no matter what language you use, right? So I think that will still be valuable. I think you might have a specialization in like, instead of using Pascal, when I went to university, people were using Pascal, right? There was, and then when I started working, people were using Java. Now people use, Python, and maybe 5 years from now it'll be English, right? That's your coding language. So you'll have a senior year that might focus or specialize on defining solutions and creating solutions to problems using English, right? So it's like we used to watch Star Trek. Geordi would tell the computer and says, "Hey, do this for me," and that's what'll happen. Yeah.
You made an interesting point about using AI in education. And that's like bolting it on. That's the throwing the algorithm at the problem, not reimagining the work.
Yeah.
So how would you kind of reimagine the educational workflow with AI assumed?
So what I like about Now this is a personal experience, right? So for me, I wanted to teach my daughter calculus over the summer. And, I'm very rusty on my calculus, right? So it was a good experiment where, well, she doesn't know it. I'm rusty on it. I have Khan Academy. But then when you use AI to do it, it created a customized curriculum for her and moved her at a pace that she was comfortable with and reinforced wherever she was weak, right? Now it's like having a private tutor, right? And I think that aspect of it is phenomenal, right? And you can keep asking, explain to me, okay, give me 5 more problems that help me reinforce this skill, right? Why was it not like this? Why was it like that? If you don't have access to someone live that's able to tell you these things, it's very difficult. And I wasn't at the stage where I could answer so many of these questions. I felt like I was relearning calculus, but at a much faster rate than I did when I was in university. And I could tell the difference, right? When she started learning things quicker than I was able to back then, right? So I was like, okay, well, something's working here.
This is gonna be our last question.
Okay.
So I got 2 questions. What? Yeah, sorry.
Last question is 2 questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
So for the first question, I would say, do you think AI is making just generations of people potentially a little smarter since they're more accessible to the information that they may seek rather than what's being forced upon them in school? That's the first question. And the second question is, how do you think AI is going to play into like the stock market? Like, do you think AI could have predicted what happened in the stock market yesterday? And based on what happened yesterday, do you think it can predict if that will ever happen again in the future?
All right. So the first question. Do I think that in an educational context that people are smarter because of AI, are getting smarter? I think they have access to a lot more information at their tips. It's like, did Google search make you smarter? Did it? What do you think? I think it gave you answers faster because there's no way you can search so much information. But if you weren't able to think of the question to ask, it didn't make you ask better questions, did it? No, right? So I think AI will always be a phenomenal tool until it can think for itself. And when it does that, it will really become a collaborator as opposed to someone that is just doing your bidding, right? It's going to amplify your power because there's no way you can consume and research 10,000 research papers and synthesize that and say, give me the top 5 findings from this. There's no way you can do that. Not in one afternoon, but now you can, right? So, but you have to know the question to ask and the 5,000 papers or whatever it is. You have to know all of that and say, look here, look there, look there. And here, I want you to focus on questions that answer this criteria, right? So yes, it'll get you, I think it'll make you think. You have to be clearer in your thought process. Okay, that part is critical. Okay, it'll improve you in that, but it's not going to make, it's not, what it's doing is it's basically amplifying your power. That's what it'll do. Okay. The second question, the models as we see them today, they're two different types of models, right? They're the statistical models that are just based on regression and things like that. And we know what they are. They will just, they will carry forward and they will go to they can only predict a certain amount ahead of time. Most probably, the further out they go, the more they deviate and, you don't have enough data. Generative AI models can only tell you what they're trained on, right? So that's why you need to retrain them. But the thing is that when you ask them about something, even in the past, they have bias because they already know this information. So they'll never answer it wrong. They will always answer it right because they were trained on it and they have this information. They have this tons of memory, right? The models just keep getting larger. So I think generative models are, in my opinion, are not the right kind of models you want to use in stock market, trend analysis and things like that. Those are still much better when you use statistical models and regression models, right? They have their place. They're really good at generating a signal from unstructured data that is not a time series based content, right? So they can add additional flavor to it, right? And they will always be valuable in improving the signal finally before a trade is done, or if you have some orthogonal signal that's coming in to kind of stop a trade, or it's risk because some CEO from some company has an affair with someone. It shows up on TV. That happened recently, right? And what does that do? It's not in the time series, but it's on social media. So that can impact it. So it can do all of that.
All right. Can we please get a round of applause?
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Was a great Q&A. I'm Abraham, part of the Google Club on campus. Try to host these events a couple times a semester. And please, if you didn't do attendance, please do it before you leave. And please join our Discord. We're going to announce future events. And that's his LinkedIn. Thanks.
Yeah.